Welcome to episode 382 of the Tilehurst End podcast. We are back after a 2-week hiatus, just to see what's going on. Really, we're kind of at the meeting of the waters here in RG2. The chaos, the choppy turbulence, if you like, of the boardroom still rumbles on off the pitch, but with the players returning back at Bearwood this afternoon, things on the pitch might be returning to semi-normality for fans and players alike. Welcome to a very sweaty, very hot, very humid Tilehurst, where I'm recording from, joined by Tom Hill. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. I think I'm all right for a Wednesday in a heat wave. I think I'm okay.
It's good to hear.
And Ross, you're very groggy, aren't you, sir?
I'm a little groggy. I can't complain. I've been in Disney World, so I'm not going to complain. It's been all right. But
absolute sellout.
I know,
honestly.
Complete sellout. And that's why you haven't had any stuff from me recently, listeners. But no, I got 4 hours sleep last night after we got home. So yeah, if I get delirious, I apologize, and we'll take it. We'll see where we end up.
Well, I mean, Ross may be delirious, but he has got an air conditioning unit, which we are very, very jealous of in these increasingly hot summers that we're having in Berkshire and across the country, I guess. It
does seem like you're having them every year now. You're going to have to get one of these things pretty soon, I would say. They are, I mean, they're killing the planet, but they are quite nice.
Thanks, as always, to our non-sweaty sponsors, ZCZ Films, who are continuing to prop us up. One stream of consistency, if you like, in a very turbulent world, so we're very grateful to them. We've got a few things to talk about, some Reading stuff, some non-Reading stuff, and we'll chuck in some chaos for good measure as well. As I said, episode 382 of the Tilehurst End podcast. I'm having a little drink of water, and then we'll be straight back to talk about the fixtures which were released today.
Keep up to date with all things Reading FC. Follow the Tilehurst End on Facebook and Twitter.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ZCZ Films. Remember, if you want to get involved in sponsoring the show, drop us an email to thetilehurstend@gmail.com.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Tilehurst End podcast. Fixtures were released today. Look, let's be honest, there's nothing else really going on in the world of Reading Football Club at the moment that we can really get our teeth into. So we timed that pretty well. We kind of said in advance we were going to record this evening, and I completely forgot it was fixtures release. So that's worked out really, really well. So it's kind of added a little bit more to what we wanted to talk about. Tom, did any of those fixtures raise your temperature at all? Is there anything that is standing out there that you go, I cannot wait for that one?
I'd say the closest to that would be the Wrexham away, which is, I think, only third or fourth game in. Pretty close, obviously because of all the Hollywood stuff, but also it's a new ground. Should be a good away day. Fairly local to me as well, so I'm looking forward to that. I wouldn't say quite raised my heart rate or the anxiety there, but yeah, we'll take it. It's another league in League One. Can't get too excited, can we?
I mean, there's some tricky games straight off the bat, Tom, really. I mean, I'm looking at August. Yeah. Birmingham away, which is live on TV. Not quite Super Sunday, but, Mega Saturday or whatever. And then we've got Wigan at home, Wrexham away, and then Charlton at home. And that's a difficult month anyway, let alone the start of the season. I mean, looking at those fixtures as a whole, Tom, do you think we're going to have to be satisfied with just the 12 points, or do you think we're going to be a little bit worse off than that, do you think?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'd love to say we're going to push for playoffs this season, but the more the time goes on, the more the ownership situation isn't sorted, the more players I see signing for other teams that could have signed for us. And we've also got to recognise that last year we sort of had the ability to almost say to players, the ownership situation will be sorted. Now you're fooling nobody after however many years of problems, not paying wages. It's not an attractive proposition, unfortunately. So I think we do have a strong squad to start out with, but yeah, I'm not too hopeful, to be honest with you.
I mean, we talk time and again about the quality of this squad, towards the
Yeah,
back end of last season. And, I think that on the last pod, myself and Ross said, look, if we can keep what we've already got together, we might stand a little bit of a chance of looking upwards. But, the longer the summer goes on, and bear in mind, we're the 26th of June now, 2 months pretty much to the day after the season finished, we still haven't signed a single player. And I feel like possibly we're one of the only clubs now left in the league that hasn't signed one. Ross,
Yeah.
I mean, parking where we might finish as a club, in terms of looking down the fixture list and those other teams that we are going to play, is there anyone that pops out to you straight away that is going to have a strong season, do you think?
I know that the Birmingham fans were very hopeful when they came down, which sounds silly, but the fan base didn't seem as concerned about being relegated as you might think they were. I'm sure they're more I'm sure they're more bothered than I'm portraying it here, but I know there were some articles about how they seem to have some hope that the future is going to be good for them. So I think that they're expecting to have a reasonably good season, and I expect they would hope to bounce right back up. But you never know. The League One's a weird league. All of the leagues in England are weird, and getting promoted, playing consistently for a long time is hard. So I guess Birmingham are the very, the way too early prediction for me to be in the automatic spots. And yeah, I mean, obviously there are some other, there's Wrexham coming up now. So, people are going to wonder if they're just going to keep on their steamroller. And, this is where a lot of those players that have gotten them up through these leagues have come from in the first place as League One. So be interesting to see if they can push past that level. Like as other League One team players have been able to do on teams like Ipswich and Southampton in the past. But yeah, just be really interesting to see if they can continue their upward trend, obviously. So yeah, Birmingham though would probably be the team to look out for me at the moment.
Can I just say on that? Sorry, I think
Yeah.
Rotherham have had a really good few signings. Steve Evans as well. He's what's the word to describe him? I think inevitable. you love him if you've got him, and you hate him if you haven't, and we haven't. They've signed some really good players. Charlton as well. Nathan Jones is a good manager, as much as he makes himself to be a bit of a clown sometimes. They made a couple of good signings too. So I'd back those two.
It's a good point. I mean, that's probably the nicest way anyone's ever described Steve Evans, I think. Probably could have thought of a few more, really. But you're right. I mean, they seem to have did their business or done most of their business within the first week of the season finishing. So, they brought in some good players. I mean, there are other clubs that are making waves. I saw today that Burton Albion have signed Danilo Orsi from Crawley, which is an incredible signing for them, really. And with their kind of ownership issues sorted, you'd be very surprised if they were at the top end of the table, but they can certainly compete in this division. Bristol Rovers signed our good old Clinton Mola. He's gone there for a club that he says has ambition, all the way from the top of the club at the boardroom, all the way down to the backroom staff, which I think might be a sly dig at Reading Football Club, but you never know. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But there are some clubs there that need to have some good seasons. There'll be a little bit of pressure and expectation on Wrexham, of course, because of the background story around them. Really, Bolton, they will be disappointed to have not gone up last season, and will really, the pressure I think from day one is going to be on Ian Evatt. You've got other clubs around that Peterborough still there. You mentioned, Tom, Charlton with Nathan Jones in charge at the start of the season. Maybe they can do something. So it's going to be quite interesting, I think. We end the season with Barnsley at home, which could be a make or break game at any end of the table, really. Cambridge United is the first game of the calendar year away, but I think the positive thing is we have a Christmas where we don't travel. We've got Northampton on the 26th, and then we've got Mansfield at home on the 29th. So not two bad games, really, to finish out the calendar year. Do you think the players, Tom, are looking at this with any sort of feelings? Do you think they care about where they're playing when, or is it just part of the job for them?
I think if I was a player, I'd certainly care. If you've got a trip to, Carlisle are gone now, I suppose, but say Bolton, Stockport, any of those faraway clubs, especially on Boxing Day, you don't want that, and you might have to stay over the day before as well. So just in terms of your families, really being able to do what you want around that period, and yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at it, there are some months that are incredibly hectic. There is, what's that, 6 league games alone in December, another 6 in January. There is 6 in March and 6 in April. But then you've got some months, November, for example, and there's a couple of international breaks in there, but only 3 league games scheduled currently. And September and August look pretty light on the games as well. So it's not, it's not a particularly horrendous start in terms of number of games. But realistically, you're looking at those key months of sort of October, November in terms of the league starting to settle down and clubs getting into or rather out of form. So it's going to be an interesting one to see how that pans out. I think for me, Ross, I'm still pretty undecided about where we are. I think it's been a difficult 2 months really, because we had a lot of optimism that was building. When we finished the season with that game against Blackpool. And then, of course, nothing's happened. Literally nothing has happened.
Yeah.
Do you think that we are really running out of time now? First of all, to kind of get a squad together for this season, but also for the long-term objectives of the club? Or do you think actually, the longer this goes on, it might be that we get our perfect fit?
Well, look, it's weird because, like the last time we were on the pod, we had to talk about the charges that Bowen had faced or is facing. And it does feel like, there's quite a lot of stuff like that hanging around the club right now, which is potentially part of the reason for some of the delays. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I still kind of trust him to bring in some reasonable players, even though, the... even though the situation is what it is and that we haven't really had any updates for a while now. And the only updates that we're kind of hearing through rumors, which we'll talk about later, aren't exactly the most positive. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not losing faith because I think that our recruitment team is actually pretty well managed, and I think that the way in which they analyze players is pretty good. And I do think that Sellers has a good base of contacts and stuff for players as well, but depends on I do think that it's getting towards the end of June now. By the end of the Euro, we really need to be hearing something positive. We can go through a few weeks of preseason sure like this, but no, yeah, we need something to start moving soon.
Well, we haven't had any confirmation either way of Rashisha and Abrafa signing new contracts. We are led to believe that they were in training today. I've not seen any pictures personally online of them, but I gather there was a few floating around. So, if they are still in and around the club, that's probably good news for us in terms of quality, certainly from Abrafa's point of view. And obviously in terms of numbers as well. I mean, Rashisha, it could be a big season for him because we saw very little of if anything, of him in the first team last year. Didn't see too much of him in the under-21s either, but I think if those players commit, it gives us a little bit more to kind of play around with position-wise. One thing that we did see today was the brand new training kit, which I was led to believe was highly controversial, but I don't think it is really. Why it's an interesting choice for the staff, because that is going to get potentially very grubby, bearing in mind that coaches and community staff use that as well. So I hope they've got some kind of whitewash powder on the go for those ones. Tom, we'll start with you first, mate, because you're wearing a very nice, very fetching retro Reading shirt, I have to say.
Thank you.
The old pale blue West Coast number. I like that one a lot. How do I put this? Are you going to go out and buy any of this stuff, or are you just not bothered?
I'm a bit torn, to be honest. The one that's like luminous orange with the badge sort of fragmented in a bit of a pattern. I saw it and I thought, is that a joke? I know some people are big fans, but I think it's absolutely disgusting. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not that kind of lime green, pale blue mashup. It's not. Yeah, it's not for me, Tom. Awful. I have to say.
So I like dressing like an absolute pineapple, and I looked at that, and the first time I also thought that looks like a Dunkin' Donuts refresher. which I know they have Dunkin'
Yeah.
Donuts in London, but they're like super bright, energy drink kind of like things that you drink in the summer. It is definitely going to raise some eyebrows for sure. But I do kind of like. This is why I like being with Macron, because they serve up some like weird stuff sometimes, which I'd rather have that than the boring ass like Puma stuff we used to get.
Yeah.
I don't mind the white stuff's okay. What troubles me is the kind of the V on the bottom of the
Yeah.
stomach. Like if you're an athlete, fantastic. If you're not an athlete, that could be pretty controversial. Could accentuate in all the wrong areas, couldn't it? So it's one of those. I'm not too sure on the pattern either. I'm looking at the quarter zip now, the player one, the green one. 60
I really like the
pounds,
hooded.
by the way. £60. Goodness
Wow.
me, that's
It's never
inflation
cheap,
for you.
is it?
But I mean,
Yeah.
it's all right. It just looks a bit. I don't know. I think you're right, Ross. I think Macron give it the beans, and they're
They do.
the very least that we can say is that they aren't boring. That's
Yeah.
that's the biggest compliment I can give them right now. I definitely don't like the warm up t-shirt. I don't mind the staff white bits. I quite like the goalie shirt actually. It's kind of.
I think the white ones remind me of a Wales shirt a bit, actually.
Exactly,
Yes.
Tom.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
That's what we need. Bit of that.
It's not.
It's the one. But yeah, I mean, look, it's
sign.
good to it's quite nice that they just drop this stuff unannounced, because normally previous seasons you kind of wait for photos to see what they're wearing in terms of the training kit and try and get a glimpse into the the kits and stuff. But I can't see any of our kits this season being anything like this training stuff. Can you? I can't.
Ooh, I'm wondering if that
There
white
isn't-
one is indicative of where the away kit might be going. And maybe I'm completely wrong, but I'm looking at that white one and I'm like, I have a feeling that we might end up in that sort of direction.
But I don't understand. I'm looking at that again. And I'm thinking, why have they got a green V in there? Just leave it white. Like I don't understand
know.
the significance of
Yeah.
it.
I really liked the Arsenal kit, the kind of like bottle green sort of Arsenal kit. I don't know if the men were wearing it. Maybe it was just the ladies.
Okay.
So I was kind of happy to see that come in for Reading. Like just to have that color in my Arsenal back here on the kit wall.
It kind of, that white one almost looks a little bit like a jockey shirt. Like horse riding. It just gives off a kind of a Grand National vibe. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. All right, well, there's a question for listeners for next time. What would give us some Reading Football Club themed horse riding names? Racehorse names. Sorry. So, what would the what would the Are We Up? I think would be the name of my Reading FC themed racehorse. It would be Are We Up?
I like that. Yeah. That's a good shout. Actually, that's a good one to think about that one. Well, that kind of draws close to the recap section of a usual pod. Regular listeners will know that we try and bake it up. That is a sort of a recap, I guess. You got your fixtures, you got your waffle about the training stuff. So we're going to move on to more hard hitting matters, and I genuinely do mean that, because Ross has got a lot to say about the women's situation. So we're going to have a short break, and then we will come back to that.
For all the latest Reading news, analysis and opinion, visit the website at thetilehurstend.com.
Welcome back to the Tilehurst End podcast, episode 382. I'm here, still with Ross, still with Tom, and we're kind of moving on to more serious matters, really. You will have seen over the last few days and week or so that there's been a lot of speculation around the women's team at the football club, and we don't have the full facts. Nothing's been formally announced, but we have an idea if you've read those articles and listened to people connected to the football club talk about the women's division in interviews they've given, that it's not looking good at all. And obviously we're not on the inside of that. We don't know the full extent of discussions and what's been going on, if any, really. But it does cast yet another very grim, very dark shadow over the way that the club has been run, not just over the last season, but over the last few years. And this time last year, pretty much we were told that women and all the staff will be moving to a part-time model following relegation from the WSL. Obviously, now find ourselves in the Championship. Managed to stay up towards the end of last season. And Ross, it's not a good state of affairs at all, is it? Really, at the moment.
Yeah, no, I find it particularly disappointing. So like, obviously this week or the previous week in England, Harry Kane and Lineker and Shearer have been having a fight, England striker fight about, the way the team have been playing, and they talked about how, well, you never won anything either, was basically Kane's point. And I thought to myself, wow, that's I know he's talking about the men, but I'm just like, how quickly we forgot that the women literally won something, like what, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and then they got to the final of the World Cup and pushed Spain really far as well. So the women in England do win things, and they inspire a lot of people when they do that, and I think it's really important. And I think that it's worth noting that two players who have been a big part of that have been, Frank Kirby and Mary Earps. Now, Mary Earps obviously been the Manchester United goalkeeper for most of that period, but she was at Reading for one season maybe. So these are players that have been able to come to our club, elite women's players who have won big tournaments, who have been able to come to our club and have success. And obviously Frank Kirby speaks to the importance of the girls academy and stuff like that. So look, I find it really disappointing, these rumors about the women's club being sort of, I don't even know if it's going to run next season. I think that the BBC is reporting that both the girls academy and the women's team have been told there's no guarantee that they will play next season. I think that's awful for the team, obviously, and it's also particularly awful for the girls academy. I don't particularly see why that has to end, even if the women's team isn't there, but I don't want any of it to end. I can understand why, like, any owners looking at Reading are looking at it as a commercial asset, because that's how they got into the position that they're in, where they can potentially buy a football club, an incredibly expensive thing, by being people who understand commercial assets. But I think, the last few years, the reaction to the Super League, all these kinds of things have shown us that football clubs are community assets as well. And if you're, eliminating the pathway for 50% of your community, are you really, serving your community? I would argue probably not. And so I would say any prospective owner who thinks that, they're not interested in funding the women's team, I'm not interested in having you as our owner. It's not going to work out, basically. So I was glad to see that Sell Before We Die have started the campaign to raise awareness of this and make sure that Reading fans are backing the women's team just as much as they are the men's. And then I guess last thing I'll say on that, I just want to speak a little bit about how some of the women who have been approached to talk about it, such as Charlie Escort, have sort of approached this situation. They're disappointed. They're not completely slating the club, though. They're more hopeful than anything else. So I really hope the takeover gets done soon, because for a million reasons, obviously, I want Sellers to stay. I want us to be able to make signings on the men's team, but losing the women's team would be as big a blow to me, if not a much bigger blow, than losing Ruben Sellers, Sam Smith, Lewis Wing, players like this. And I'm sure that's not an opinion that everybody would share. I just don't think that any community asset can just say it's not going to serve half the community and still call itself a community asset. So yes, girls can still come to the games, women can still come to the games, and they do, and they will in droves, and they will be inspired by what they see. But it is well documented that when people can see people who look like themselves, people who look like they've had the same experiences of themselves, in their sports, in their entertainment, and all these kinds of things, they feel more included. And they are more, it's easier for them to see the pathway, to see that, okay, well, it's always my brother's playing in the yard or whatever, but like, I can see that there are some like really elite, ladies teams around here too, and I want to make my way to that. So yeah, I'm very forthright about it, that if you are not interested in funding the women's team, I am not interested in you as a potential owner.
Yeah, I mean, I hate giving you credit, but that was incredibly well articulated. So well done. I mean, that was very powerful. Listen to that, and I personally, for once, can't disagree with you on anything you've said there, Ross. So thank you for sharing that. I mean, I think just pick up on your point about the community and kind of the representation within the community. And, I was lucky enough to be around the team on most home match days when they got relegated to the season that, the last season that Kelly Chambers did. And that it was a struggle on a pitch. There's no denying that's why they ended up getting relegated, and a lot of players left, and Kelly left, and then Liam came in, and things changed around, and they moved to a part-time model, as I said earlier. But one thing that they did really well was engage the community, and I saw that firsthand because I had a lot of tickets to give out to our community in terms of the school and kids locally and families locally and stuff. And for some of these families, it was their first experience of going to a live game. I'm biased. We're all biased in the fact that Stade DSL is one of the best grounds in the world. It's simple facts, really. And for them to go there and see a game and see your Stanways, your Williamsons, your Brights, your Earps come and play their hometown team was a massive hook for them. They know these players because they were so successful with England the previous summer, and that ignited a lot of passion and a lot of interest. And certainly at the school I work at, we had run by the Community Trust, we had a lot of girls only sessions just to generate the kind of the love and the inspiration of football from a young age. You take that away and it becomes very, very difficult to, not impossible, as you said, but it becomes very, very difficult to engage some of those girls because they won't see themselves in their hometown club. Of course, there's some great women's clubs locally, Maidenhead, Caversham, other teams around that they could go and see, but it's not the same if you don't go to what would be termed as a professional football stadium, which is what the Select Car leasing is. It's going to be very, very difficult for everyone. Community Trust as well. From a selfish point of view, it's going to be very, very difficult to meet some of the things that we want to do within the community if there's no women's team. And it's absolutely vital in the same way that the youth teams, academies and everything else. And we go on and we bang on about this football club being a community club. Hasn't been a community club for years. Categorically, it hasn't. It's completely lost its way. But there is a pathway back to where the club want to be and where the local people that love this football club want to see it. And you might not be interested in women's football, but for me, it's always about Reading and what that can do for the community. Tom, without kind of picking the age card, you're a lot younger than me, a little bit younger than Ross. He's kind of in between here. Do you see representation for yourself and your kind of peers in terms of how the women's team is presented? Is it, should it be targeted at the youth? Should it be targeted at the whole fan base? Does it matter in your opinion, really?
I think it definitely matters. Just because, as you said, Ross, you can only sort of get somewhere if you see a clear pathway, and if you see people like you doing it already. We've had it before, even about like racism stuff. Back in the day, there weren't as many black players, Asian players. Now that's increasing, and maybe it's people would say it's not where it should be, but it's certainly got better because of that. And the exact same thing should be happening with the women's, definitely. And could I just add on that as well? I had a look at the sort of some of the other teams in the leagues around us, because there's a bit of a narrative I've seen online, as if to say the women's team is a drain on the men's team in terms of finances. And I just don't think that's true at all, because there's, in the Championship, which is obviously what Reading are in now, there's Lewis and Durham. And Lewis are in Isthmian Premier, the men's team, and Durham haven't got a men's team. And if you know anything about Step 3 non-league football, you know that it's not a rich place to be. The players aren't on a lot of money. And those are definitely not bankrolled by a men's team. They're definitely not a drain on it. They're obviously money-making assets in themselves. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't bother. And the step below as well, you've got hashtag Chatham Town, Billericay Town, all in the Isthmian Premier League, all keeping up a Step 3 women's team. And when these when the men's teams only get their attendances measured in hundreds rather than thousands, they're not making a lot of money. They're not funded by some Russian oligarch. The women's are money making assets in themselves, and I think the narrative that it's taken away from the men's team is just not true at all.
That's a really, really good point. And comparison in terms of those teams in Reading's league, our league, but also the comparison to the men's team is a stunning point, Tom, and really well made there, because actually that's true. And I can't. I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. What are we talking? Less than 2 million, I would say, to run the women's team a year, which in the current scheme of football is peanuts. It really is, and you would imagine that if the club is pushed correctly commercially from the women's point of view, they'd be able to recoup most of that in sponsorship. So I don't know. I'm not a football financial expert. I'm sure someone listening to this will go, "Shut up, Ben, you don't know what you talk about," and that's absolutely fine. But I can't imagine it's costing a huge amount to run in the grand scheme of things. I don't know in terms of takeover. I don't know how it works. I don't know if someone can come in separately and take the women on. I don't know if they have to be part of the package that the men and the academy do. I really don't know. I just don't see. I don't see an end to the women's team personally. I think that in some capacity does continue. I just don't. I don't know what, and I hope it does. I really do, because I'll be honest and say that we've not given enough time to the women on this pod this year, and that's on me, because ultimately I set the agenda. But with everything that was going on off the pitch, and certainly on the pitch earlier on in the season, we did tend to focus on the women. We've got Peter, who writes fantastic articles about the women for the Tilehurst End. So we've tried in some respects to focus on it. We need to do more, and we will look to address that, and we hope we get the opportunity to address that. But the fact remains that we hope it continues to survive and inspire the next generation, and just inspire those fans that just want to go and watch Reading women's as opposed to Reading men. That's absolutely fine. For me, if you're part of the club, then we're all in it together, and we should be all in it together. That might be a very simplistic view, but I try and live in a simplistic world, so we'll see what happens. We're gonna take a short break, and then we're gonna dive straight into the mailbag on this episode 382 of the Tilehurst End podcast. So bear with us, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Send in your views to the tilehurstend@gmail.com and have your say in the mailbag.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Tilehurst End podcast. I must have said that thousands of times already, but I just want you to make sure that you haven't slipped into some Euro football fantasy podcast, which are very good, I have to say. But we are the Tilehurst End, and that is what we're going to keep saying. Right, what did we put on our call out? We said, let us know your thoughts on the women. We have covered that really. There's nothing else for us to say currently on that situation. The fixture list we've done, the Euros, and what food is first on your barbecue as it is very hot.
Oh, yeah.
So, first question we've got from Benjamin Vickers, as you will imagine, is completely unrelated to anything we've asked. Did I read a while ago that iFollow was being withdrawn? What options are there for watching RFC regularly on television? Who would like to take that one first?
Well, let me just I know a little bit of stuff there, and then I'll just hand it off to people in England. But obviously I watch it through the club directly, but that is an international subscription, so I don't know / don't think that's available to you guys. So that comes directly through Royals TV or whatever it is on the club website. And I know that when games are on Sky Sports in the UK, or they're on whatever channel they're on in the UK, they end up on basically ESPN over here, the Disney Sports world. Basically, they end up on that. So we basically watch all the games either on the club website or on Hulu, which is the name of the streaming service that they put all those things on. But I don't know if that's the case in the UK. And I know that with this new deal coming in for Sky Sports having a lot more League One games now, I think it's going to be quite interesting next season.
Well, I mean, the first thing to say is I don't think there's many things more complicated than American TV subscriptions, streaming services, and channels. To be honest with you, it is genuinely mind blowing to me. Every time I go there, I'm like, is this
There's a
local?
lot
Is it
available.
national? Is it state TV? Is it
Yeah.
just out and out propaganda? I don't know. So that's great, Ross, because you completely confused us and ruined the question with your Americanisms. So thank you for that.
Glad I could be of service.
Honestly, unless Tom is going to jump in and say something, I don't know the answer to this, Benjamin. I really don't. I mean, Sky Sports is obviously the go-to because our first game is on Sky Sports. Is it Saturday at 5:30? I think it is, isn't it? Birmingham away.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean,
Ooh,
I guess because iFollow's not there and that's run through the club, it's all going to be on Sky Sports. Is that your interpretation of it, Tom?
We're still going to have some Saturday 3 p.m. So obviously not on Sky, but I don't know what's happening with the iFollow and whether that would continue just for those matches. But I struggle to see a world in which they're not streaming it somewhere on something, even if that is just for international viewers, whatever the time of day. But yeah, I mean, I hate Sky Sports, to be honest with you. I was looking at the fixtures. Every League One game is at 5:30 on that Saturday. Every Championship game is at 12:30 on that Saturday. I mean, need we say more, really?
Yeah, it's a nonsense. I mean, I think the biggest thing, and there is quite. I mean, I saw a few comments today, not least from our esteemed, if idiotic editor Sim, about trying to book travel, and because he loves to book his travel about 8 months in advance of every game. And he made the point, it's like don't know what to do, because I think these are going to change pretty rapidly and pretty fluidly in terms of shifting games around. And I was looking down the fixture list and thinking, well, I sort of understand, having it, because it would be nothing to do with us. Birmingham could be playing Burton, with all due respect to the first game of the season. They'll just want to have Birmingham's first game live because they will be, to me, the Leeds United of League One, because they'll be interested in watching them, especially with their American connections as well. Same with Wrexham. They'll be tripping over themselves to put Wrexham on the TV. I just don't understand, looking at some of our games, how they're going to be shifted and what the kind of the national audience for that is when you look at these teams who are predominantly provincial local teams, who don't have any interest nationally, that are going to be watched. I don't know what's in it for Sky. I really don't. Obviously money, but there can't be huge markets for Reading, Northampton, for example, can there? Or am I missing the point?
I think you're right on that.
There's where I think that let me start again. I think that's why the Sky deal is coming in, because I think the interest in football is booming, and so even interest in like the lower leagues, just in terms of like attendance at stadiums, has been booming. And so I wouldn't be surprised if interest in Sky Sports streams of League One and Championship games has also been booming in recent years. And I was talking about this with some American fans last week when they were asking about why we got relegated down to League One a few years ago, and obviously I said, how long have you got, for the most part. But you look at the Championship now, and there are some ginormous clubs in that league, and there are some big clubs in this league too, but there are clubs with just gigantic fan bases in that league, and they're just breeding more and more fans who are used to watching things online, and they want experiences, they want to go to games as well. So I do think there is a boom. Whatever Real Madrid's president says, that people don't want to watch football matches, they want to watch 60 minutes of whatever nonsense. He's wrong. People want to watch football right now.
Well, I get your point. I do get your point. And, from my point of view, in my youth, shall we say, I was up and down the country every single weekend, going to every single Reading game. A little bit like Sim is now, and other people that listen to this podcast. Away games, a little bit more tricky for me. I have to be a little bit more selective of the ones I go to due to, family commitments and life, basically. But if I'm, let's just flip the script a minute. If I'm a Stockport fan, so put me as a Stockport fan, imagine that. I'm looking at the fixture list. I'm going, right, January the 18th, after Christmas, cold, can't be bothered, on a diet, not drinking, blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh, actually, your game against Reading away is going to be on the TV. Me being me, I'm going to go, right, well, I'm going to sit in my house, drink non-alcoholic beer, eat celery, and watch the game for free on Sky Sports as part of my package, as opposed to going down to Reading to watch us get beat 3-0. Do you see what I'm saying? So in some capacity, does this not limit or restrict potentially the amount of people that are going to go to away games? Or again, am I missing the point?
I think if you're as a Reading fan especially, if you're willing to put up with over a year of not winning and all that misery, you know, I'm sure a lot of money spent, a lot of time spent, yeah, over a year, a lot of money, a lot of time, then you're gonna keep doing it even though it's on the TV. You know, I think away fans are the ones that go to a lot of games are a different type of football fan almost. You know, it's not necessarily about just watching the game. It's about the travel. It's about being with your mates. It's about probably getting hammered in the pub. But that's
don't forget on the train.
English
Drink
culture.
responsibly. Anyone listening, especially if you're under 18. So just ignore what Tom said about getting hammered in the pub. He doesn't mean it.
I've never done that for the record. Any listeners?
I get your point. I just feel that there are possibilities here, especially when they tinker with the times and we get less 3 p.m. Saturday kickoffs than we had previously. It becomes very difficult for people to budget not just money but time. You know, the transport system in this country, without getting political, is a shambles anyway. So, you know, if you're in Huddersfield on February the 8th and you're trying to get a train back, it might be very difficult if that becomes an 8 o'clock kickoff, for example. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know about this really. I think we have to see how it pans out as with most things this season. But
we have a surprising amount to say about
this. We do, don't we? Yeah, we
do. Sorry, just like this is quite interesting. It's quite an interesting topic. Who was the question from? Benjamin
Obviously.
Vickers?
Benjamin Vickers. You know,
obviously. Cheers, Benjamin.
And I guess this kind of...
We're going to find out in like 10 years that Benjamin Vickers is just Ben's
exactly. Yeah, it's just my
alter
ego. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he's just asking himself questions.
Imagine that. Oh, this is a good question that I won't take credit for. Yeah, it's not me. It's not me. I'm not trying to steal your life, Benjamin. Don't worry. But I guess this leads me on to the kind of the point that you know I've been feeling really over the last few years, and I can link it to the Euros. I can link it to the England fans' experience of the Serbia game in Germany and trying to get transport out of there. You know, these authorities constantly tell us that football is nothing without the fans, and I just feel that this deal with Sky is going to make it very difficult for a lot of fans to get to the games that they desperately want to get to. Is kind of my take on it at the moment. I hope I'm wrong, but you know, you look at the Euros and you look at the way that's panning out for some of the fans in terms of physically just getting to the games and getting in and out. It looks like it's been incredibly difficult for those people, and that's just not right, is it? You know, that's just not what you want to see. You know, fans being not just priced out, but logistically pushed out of the game as well. So hopefully this won't be a bad thing, and it will actually grow the audience, as you said, Ross. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Just a very brief chat about the Euros. No one really directly said anything, but I wanted to touch on it anyway. Tom, thinking about the fact that the group stage is currently coming to an end right now, who have you been most impressed with over the course of these last sort of 2 weeks from the sets of games that the players have played?
Oh, it's a difficult one. I can't lie. I haven't watched. I'm not one of the obsessives that will watch every single game religiously, but I think I can give you a player actually, because I've watched all the England games as an England fan, obviously. And although we've been pretty woeful, we've conceded one goal? Yeah, we conceded 1 goal over the 3 games. And a mainstay in that defence has been Gay, who's been exceptional, I think. I mean, look, he's not really playing world beaters, but playing in your first major tournament when he's not got many caps under his belt anyway is really impressive. He's had a couple of slip-ups, but nothing major. 1 goal conceded in 3 games. You can't argue with that for a defender.
He has been. I think I read somewhere that he's had the most ball recoveries of the group stage. I don't know if that was accurate up until the Slovenia game.
No,
I'm not
yeah,
sure,
but
but he's been really good.
he's been great. Just to add my tactical nonsense. Oh, Tom's here too, so he can talk about it too. Just to add some tactical nonsense to him, I think he's been really, really good in 1v1 duels. Obviously, there's been like, I think there was one yesterday where he had to like pull back the Slovenian player and took a yellow card for it. But in general, in 1v1 duels, he's been super useful, which when you are a team that's going to have the majority of the ball in games like these, and you know a lot of the chances that the opposition has are going to be in transition or in counter attack, it's really useful to have a guy there who can just beat out a fast striker or something like that. So yeah, I agree. Gay has been probably England's best player so far.
The downside of that, though, is I think it unfortunately spells the end for Harry Maguire for England. I don't see a way back for him, really, because he must be 30, 31 by now. He's never been the best, but he's been consistent. And now he's been injured. He's just lost his spot. It's hard to see him getting back in, which is unfortunate, because I think he was always really good for us.
Ross, putting Reading FC back on the agenda, are there any teams that you've watched in the Euros so far? Obviously, I'm conscious of the time difference, but if you have caught anything, are there any teams?
Oh, I've watched lots. Don't worry.
Good. Okay, so you'll be able to answer this. Are there any teams that you think play as close to, if not identical, Sellers ball?
Oh yeah, so the great question.
Thank you.
I would say Benjamin Vickers with another great question. The team that I've been most impressed with throughout the whole tournament so far has been Austria, and that's great because that's who my wife got in the sweepstake. So hopefully they keep pushing forward. I love Marcel Sabitzer for obvious reasons, given that his side profile is the same as mine, but also just fantastic player, and I really appreciate a striker who managed to transition back further deeper on the field, as a midfielder. They play a similar-ish style. They are obviously coached by Ralph Rangnick, the godfather of the Gegenpress. And this is a man that Sellers has undoubtedly drawn inspiration from, because he's been brought in before to coach alongside Ralph Hasenhüttl. Ralph Hasenhüttl is another coach who is definitely somebody who was inspired directly by Ralph Rangnick. So I would say Austria are a great example of a high press side that kind of like to operate out of possession a little bit like Reading do. I would love to have a player like Sabitzer on Reading. That's obviously, he's a man who played in the Champions League final. So maybe that's a little bit beyond us at the moment. But yeah, Austria, I would say, are a good shout.
Any players stood out for you, Tom? I know you obviously mentioned Gay, but anyone from any other nation that you thought, actually, do you know what, they're all right, actually? They're pretty good, and that you've kind of seen or potentially could do a job for Reading Football Club in a dream world?
I was going to say Lamine Yamal until you said do a job for Reading Football Club. First time I've really got to watch him properly, and he's been amazing. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid's going to be incredible. But then you said could do a job for Reading Football Club. I'm like, no, yeah.
We can live in hype. I mean, there's been some good players I've been impressed with. I mean, obviously, in terms of teams, I like Spain, but they've not hit top form at all, but they've been able to cope with the demands that they've thrown at them and pretty comfortably, really. I like Germany. Obviously, I thought their first game against Scotland was great. Really, really enjoyable to watch them. Not because it's Scotland. I don't have anything against Scotland, but obviously England fans will laugh about it. But for me, it doesn't make a difference. But they just did the job really, really well, and they were quite exciting to watch. Beyond that, I mean, Austria looked pretty good. Still waiting for France to play. Like, to be honest, I've not seen anything from them that I think is particularly exciting or enjoyable. And then, of course, the other one with the group that's just finished, Group E, where everyone finished on 4 points. I was quite surprised with Romania. They got some good players in their team. Like, they're pretty well organised. pretty wasteful up top in terms of actually taking games and getting the points. But topping that group is pretty good. Like Belgium obviously have got quality but haven't shown it yet. Ukraine, plucky underdogs, and Slovakia again have been quite good as well. So, from a Romanian's point of view, they must be delighted with that. Wrap up the Euros very quickly then. If you had to choose a winner now, Tom, who would you choose?
I see an England v Germany final, and I've got to go for England.
I'm going to write that down.
Nice.
England v Germany.
I've got England-Spain in the final.
Have you?
I got England-Spain. I think Spain are going to win, though. I think we're going to get a repeat of the World Cup.
So
the Women's World
you
Cup.
boys are still confident that England will get to the final?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't. Yeah, like I don't know. I don't get as worked up about England as a lot of people do.
From a neutral's point of view, I still think they will go deep into the tournament. I think they will kick into gear. Ultimately the facts are they top the group. They didn't lose. Didn't score anywhere near enough goals for people's expectations. Obviously, drawing 2 games is not great, but they still top the group. And ultimately, that is what you've got to do. And when you look at those other teams that didn't top their groups, that are going to have a fairly tricky experience in the last 16. And I'm not saying it'll be easy for England, but there is the quality there, and I think there is the desire to do well. So, I see them going further into the tournament. I think whoever they play on Sunday, they win. I think they will have enough to do that. So that's that, really. Let's wrap up the mailbag then. We did ask about barbecues because, of course, it is barbecue season. What is the first food that you would put onto your barbecue? And Alistair says that his dad puts frazzles on there, as in the bacon crisps.
I did
I've
see
never heard
that,
of anything
and now
like
I'm
that.
tempted.
I mean, to be honest, is that for you? Like, do you even like frazzles?
I don't know. I'm not really a crisp man, to be honest.
You're not a crisp
I
man?
can't get behind them too much. So
What? Yeah. Hang on.
no, I don't know. It's I quite like. I know this is going to sound like proper posh, but I like the thicker ones, like kettle chips and
Yeah.
stuff like that. The ones that you get from like a pub or something. But
I
when
like
it's
that.
like the Walkers, like you can almost see through them. Like I don't know, it doesn't do it for me.
So what-
the too strong a flavour as well.
What you're saying is you like bar crisps as opposed to working man's club crisps. That's what you're saying, isn't it? Just embrace it. It's fine.
Well-
You're amongst friends. It's okay.
Well, I'm not sure I'll put it like that, but I suppose so.
Frazzles on a barbecue that's intense, isn't it?
I love frazzles. I'm really tempted to try that. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to put them on top of a burger. And I think it's going to be
nice.
really, really good. And the correct answer to this question is corn on the cob. Put that on the barbecue rather than like in a big pot of water or whatever, and it's amazing. Do that. Recommend. Okay. And then put like chipotle cheese and all that kind of stuff. Do you guys know what street corn is?
No.
This is a Mexican thing. No? Okay. Look up street corn, or elote, as it's called. Remember, 50% of this country speaks Spanish, so we have wonderful Mexican food.
Do you want to hear a fun story about chipotle?
Yeah.
The first time I saw that word, I don't know. I mean, I'll probably be the only person who finds this funny, but I pronounced it as chipotle.
Yep.
That's pretty normal, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
You're in good company.
Thanks. Appreciate that. I thought it was funny. Obviously, it's not funny. It's gone down like a wet balloon, so won't be saying that again. But yeah, so he's gone for frazzles, and then he goes on to say, it's a bit selfish, he's taking up 2 questions. Is there any things that go on a barbecue in America that Ross wouldn't do here, or vice versa? Street corn, probably, because no one's heard of it.
Yeah, corn. I don't know how good the corn on the cob is in the UK. Is it good?
What, generically? I mean, I guess it's okay.
It's all right, yeah.
Like, can you buy it in the super? Can you? I'm sorry. Yeah. I know. I'm literally British, but I'm just. Can you buy it in the supermarket? Like, still in the corn on the cob in the actual
in the leaves.
In the leaves, yeah.
No. Well, I don't know. I've never seen it.
I've never seen it in the leaves.
It's trimmed.
Okay.
In
So when you go into the supermarket in Maine in the summer, basically, when you walk through the front doors, the first thing you're going to see is all of the barbecue stuff, all of the grilling season stuff. So it's all just like burgers, steaks, pork chops, steak tips, which are amazing. like corn on the cob in like this thing, and you shuck it yourself. So yeah, it's a great time. But I'm not sure. If I don't know, really. To be honest, I love a barbecue no matter where it is. There's nothing I wouldn't put on a grill.
Okay. Well, I wish I hadn't asked you now because you've spoilt it for everyone. I'm thinking about corn and leaves,
Sorry.
like you're some sort of 1930s Midwestern farmer. But there you go. Whatever.
Yeah.
Bobbin says, do ninja grills count as barbecues? No, shut up. What else we got? Nothing else. That's it. Tom, what do you put on your barbecue? What would you have?
I haven't had a barbecue for a very long time. I can't lie. We just never really done them in my household.
Well, I hope your family are listening and they realise how sad you are about that.
I know, but my parents always said, it takes too long, or it doesn't cook it properly through, or some other thing, or it's just we've got an oven right in there which doesn't take half an hour of preparation and half an hour of cleaning afterwards.
Tom,
which I understand.
Sorry, Tom.
When it's warm enough to grill every single way, this is the longest detour. When it's warm enough to grill like every single day, like it is here for a good 4 months. A lot of us have like gas grills, so these big gas grills that are very easy to turn on, turn off, clean, all of that kind of stuff. So it's very easy to make like grilled food every single day. So like in the summer, I'll often, instead of bothering to cook inside, we're already chilling on the deck. So I'll just, whatever, I'll chuck the steak on here tonight. That's real good stuff. So Ross's grill tips, everybody. I could make a whole podcast about this.
I feel like you get more American with every passing pod, to be honest with you.
Do you want to learn the last thing
that
I'll say to it? It's going to make me even more American. I did say delirious. Yeah. This year, right? There's a new animal attacking my house or my yard every single year in Maine because it's very much in the wilderness.
Is it raccoons? Please be raccoons.
No, this year I have a family of mice living in my grill, and they will not go away.
Mice?
And I've cleaned that thing out 3 or 4 times. Yeah, mice. There's a whole family of them living in the grill. They keep getting into the bottom of it. So, yeah, that's what's going on here.
I thought you were going to say
shut up, Ross.
like,
I'm going to mute myself.
A moose ramming your car or something, but no, you've got mice in your grill.
No. There are lots of mice in my grill. All right, I'm literally going to mute myself. Bye.
Right, Ross is gone. If you stuck with us through that last segment about barbecues, congratulations. If you switched off because you thought this is nonsense, it's nothing to do with Reading Football Club and is basically podcast fraud, I understand that and I respect it. I hope you join us for the next one. However, you will know that over the summer we have done some iconic 11s. They've been very good, I have to say. We've had a mixture of age groups and age ranges and lots of semi-controversial players, shall we say, in terms of people's personal choices. But Tom has come up with... I'm laughing because I can't wait to hear what happens next. But he has come up with a food-themed Reading 11. So I am going to put myself on mute. I think Ross is on mute as well. And Tom Hill, the floor is yours, sir. Go for it.
Thank you. So this came about because I was obviously listening to your podcast, but I also have seen a few podcasts like on Peter Crouch and Gary Lineker's one and stuff, where they've done similar things, but all-time players. So I've cooked up, excuse the pun, a Reading FC all-time food and drink 11. Formation is a 4-4-2, and I'll start with the goalkeeper, Graham Cracker Stack. That one it's a bit dodgy, that one. We don't really have too many goalkeepers. Right then, defence, Brandy Eardom, Michael Blue Dewberry, Ibrahima Son
Nice.
Corn on the Cob.
Well for the podcast.
There you go.
Good. Like that.
Yeah.
Good that.
Finally, left back, Chris making dinner.
Yep.
Then you move on to midfield, centre mids, Caesar Salad Cassidy, Jay Tabasco. Right mid, Roy Pint of Beerens. Left mid, Stephen Hunt
these are terrible.
Chicken.
These are absolutely worse than I thought it was going to be, to be honest.
I know. Then you've got 2 up top, Adam LaFondant and Jamie cured Meaterton. But
I
don't
think-
stop there. There's more.
All right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Please tell me the more. There's a few in there I like.
Okay.
Keep going.
Manager. This one's obvious. Paul Mintz. Assistant manager. Steve Brown Sauce. Then you've got subs. Tomato McIntyre. That was a bit too easy. Then you've got Alpha Semay
That's
Dough.
iffy, that one. That is
like dough
borderline.
bread.
We'll give it to you,
Good.
but that is borderline.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good.
Then an easy one. Nelson Oliveira.
Nice.
Danny Drinkwater. Self-explanatory. Then John Saladko. And finally, the referee for this fictional match, Mark Battenberg.
John Saladko.
You know what? I was going to say the Caesar salad one is really funny. That's I love that. I mean, who do you want to talk about first, Ross?
I like Dave making dinner. Dave making dinner because I
Chris.
like that there's someone.
Sorry,
in there to
Chris.
cook it all
Chris
up.
making dinner.
Chris
isn't it?
making
Oh.
dinner. Sorry, yeah. That one, that's my favorite. I think.
I mean,
Yeah, it's a
Tom,
bit
who's
stupid,
your
but-
favourite out of that list?
No, it's great.
I'm a fan of Jay Tabasco because it rolls off the tongue.
That's even funnier second time around.
Jay Tabasco. Yeah,
And what was
that
the
is
one?
good.
Roy Pint of Beerens. That's
Yeah,
just
Yeah,
just
Roy
stupid.
Pint of Beerens on the
Absolutely
right.
Stupid. Oh goodness me! I mean that's kind of. There's not much else to say, really, is there? After that, I mean, that's the
Can't
Caesar
top
salad
that.
one.
no. If any listeners have got any additions,
Yeah.
I'd be welcome to hear them because it's surprisingly difficult to try and make food names out of an
I mean,
all-time
that's-
11.
Do you know what you need to
Johnson
know?
Lacko.
You need to pick another one, like another genre, if you like. What else? I don't know. What else could you? do?
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
that's extensive. The fact you've gone for assistant manager and subs and the referee as well. I mean, that's commitment. That is. I just think,
Thank you. Yeah, we need to pit them against each
See
other,
what
two
happens,
teams.
yeah.
and
Yeah,
see
you
who
gotta have
comes out
someone in
winner.
the middle of this food fight.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't last 5 minutes in a blooming American supermarket, would they, Ross?
Brilliant.
They get shoved on a barbecue.
No, wow, exactly.
Chaos.
Wouldn't even know how to shuck themselves.
What else could you do? Cars? Could you do a
Yeah.
Reading 11 cars?
I think the
difficult one.
possibilities
They
are
aren't they?
endless. But John Saladko
Yeah.
is still going to be number one for me.
Yeah, that was really, really good. Is what I'm trying to say. I enjoyed that. That was very, very funny. So,
Thank you.
I thought it was funny, and I think Ross enjoyed it as well in his desperate state that he's currently in from a tiredness point of view.
Yeah, I'm starting to.
The flag.
starting to
Well, look,
drag.
I mean, there's nothing else to say really. That wraps up episode 382 of the Tilehurst End podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I'm still laughing about Caesar salad. It's just stupid, absolutely stupid. Yeah, I mean that's
Caesar
just,
salad Cassidy.
I can't. I don't know. Yeah, listen, we'll be back at some point. There'll be another podcast, so don't worry about that. We have got a couple of of iconic 11s in the pipeline. They won't be food related. I've got the giggles now, but we will be back with some of those. We'll be back with a normal pod as well. If anything happens, please let something positive happen that we can talk about. Keep in touch with us as well if you've got anything you want us to look at, anything you want to talk about, suggestions, petitions to get us removed from the podcast, whatever it is, really, just get in touch with us via the normal channels, and we will pick that up and get back to you and hopefully feature it on the podcast as well. This is ridiculous. I can't stop thinking about the Caesar salad playing football. It's just stupid. Tom, thank you so much for joining us on this very moist Wednesday evening. Enjoy the last half of Portugal and Georgia, I think it is now, isn't it? Enjoy that, and Czech
It is,
Republic
yeah.
and Turkey if you want an option. Ross, it's 2-0, is it?
Oh, it's 2-0 now.
Chaos.
Would you believe it?
Chaos.
2-0 to Georgia.
Ross, get some sleep. Look after those mice, and I will see you soon.
Thank you.
Listeners, thank you so much for your time. Have a good rest
Yeah,
of the
see you
week.
too.
Have a good weekend when you get to it. Enjoy the next round of group games. Not group games. I've lost the plot now. Knockouts. last 16, whatever it is. I don't know. Take care. Oh yeah,
Wrap
all
it
the
up.
best, and come on, you arse.